The following is a paid advertisement of St. Anthony Hospital Orthopedics. References to any specific product, services, or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by St. Anthony Hospital, Carroll Broadcasting, or its advertisers. The views expressed by the host or guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Welcome to the St. Anthony Hospital Orthopedic Show with Dr. Richard Godding. Dr. Godding specializes in joint preservation, reconstruction, and replacement surgery, and brings over 25 years of orthopedic excellence to St. Anthony Hospital and to the Carroll area. For more information about Dr. Godding, his practice, or St. Anthony Orthopedics, go to santanthonyhospital.org or make an appointment by calling 712-794-5536.
Good Sunday morning, Iowa. It's Dr. Rick Godding. Thank you for choosing to spend some time with me here this Independence Day weekend. I like to try to say Independence Day instead of 4th of July to describe the holiday because that's, of course, what it is. And, you know, I always either have my kids read or listen to somebody reading the Declaration of Independence on Independence Day. It's not that long, but it really makes you put yourself in the position of where the founders were, and what people forget is what an inflection point in history that July 4th, 1776 is for not just America, but for the entire world. I mean, England had made noise about individual liberty, but still had a king, right? And, you know, they had the Magna Carta, and there was English common law, and they were making some progress, but it was still an absolute monarchy, right? So the king made the rules, and that was the end of it. So it's the first model of, and of course the Declaration isn't the Constitution, but the idea, though, rule by the people was just new. It was just new. I mean, the Greeks had it and the Romans had it to some extent in times that came and went, but the entire sort of founding a country on that principle was new. I mean, that kind of came in with the Greeks and came in with the Romans, and then the Romans, they both kind of faltered from that, but taught us a lot of good lessons. But the whole, we're going to set the whole thing up from the beginning here. And of course, you know, it's a unique because in a lot of ways, but I always try to keep that in mind. And it's just interesting how different. So when I was in high school, I don't remember what year I was. It would have been a junior or senior. One day my friends and I just decided we were going to rent costumes at the local costume store and show up on the 4th of July at school. I don't know if we didn't have the day off because it was during the week, and then I don't remember. For whatever reason, it might have been just the day before. I guess so. It's been a long time since I was in high school. And we just decided to go rent these costumes, and so someone was Abe Lincoln, and someone was Uncle Sam, and someone was George Washington, and went to school that way. And the interesting thing is the response at that time was our teachers and our principal loved it. All the kids loved it. The principal or somebody up in the principal's office called the middle school, which is like right across the grounds, and said, hey, we got these senior boys senior boys who dressed up like this. We want to send them over there so that the younger kids can see it. And it happened that they were doing an assembly over there. And so we just went up there, and we didn't have to prep, you see. We knew who these characters were and what they were known for. And even Uncle Sam, we, said, well, I don't know. I just don't think that would be, in a whole lot of America, something that would be embraced right now. And I find that to be tragic because I think, people lose sight of, how tremendous this country is. And of course there's problems. I mean, show me a person, a family, an organization, a church, a business. Show me any human organization or individual that doesn't have problems. And I would love to see it because I would study that, because I've never met anybody or never seen any organization that just didn't have problems. And have the problems been big? Well, of course. We're talking about, it's not just a country, it's a civilization, right? It is I guess when you talk about Western civilization, so you're talking about the Greeks coming into, and the Romans, and then, well, you start with the Hebrews, Greeks, Romans, into European civilization, and then on to America. Well, America took all those ideas and said, this is how we're going to do it. And then the influence was going the other way. Then America's influencing Europe and, showing the world what essentially nearly unbridled individualism can do. So, I don't know. I just sometimes get a little bit worried about the future when I realize how little the kids are taught about stuff, about the good things about America, and how much they're taught about the bad things about America. And we should certainly absolutely teach about the bad things 100%. We definitely should. Otherwise, you're not learning anything. But I do think that a constant focus on the negative aspects of the American project has been destructive. And I think that, when you see some amazing percentage of high school kids who say they're not proud to be American, it's just, gosh, it's terrible. It's a terrible thing to teach people in this country where the entire world has benefited in just ways that are just unfathomable. To teach that this is a place to be embarrassed of is just, it's embarrassing that they teach it that way. It's terrible, because it's basically like if you went and told your kids how terrible the family is every day. Oh, our family's so terrible. This is terrible. Everything's terrible. Or, mom saying, your dad's terrible. It's just, it just doesn't help anything. It doesn't give kids a feeling that, hey, we're in a country that's changed the entire structure of how civilization works, and that humanity has overall benefited from it on balance in ways that it would be impossible to even conceive of if we hadn't been here to stop the Nazis in World War II, or to stop the Soviets after World War II, or just to show the world what can happen. There's a reason all the great companies of the world are here. It's because people. China graduates more engineers every year than America has. So do the math on that. So they must have 15, 20, 30 times the number of engineers, and yet the innovation still comes from here. They're very good at copying what we do and trying to make it cheaper, but they're not innovating like America is. That's because America allows an individual to fail and allows an individual to be as successful as they can be. And so there's no limitation on genius. There's no bureaucratic limitation on genius. If you're a genius, you're going to end up being paid for that in America. And so that's sort of my pro-American July 4th weekend, Independence Day weekend, that is, as I started out with. I do like to point out that that's what it is. I'll tell you one funny thing is when I was in college, I guess I was in medical school. When I was in medical school, a friend of mine was in law school, and he was doing a summer semester in Oxford in England. And so I went over there to visit him, of course. And we were out on a street corner in London in the evening, and we may have been to a pub beforehand, and it was the 4th of July. And we were singing the Star Spangled Banner pretty loud. And it's funny because back then the bobbies literally wore the bobbies, the police over in London, they wore the actual, like the blue with a bell hat and all that stuff like you see in the old movies. They were still wearing those. And he came over and said, "Oh, your singing's quite lovely. It's going to stop now, isn't it?" It was just funny because, I don't know. It's just, it was just a funny thing. Anyway, funny little story. So I want to talk a little bit about today is, we talk a lot about the techniques surrounding the knee replacements, but I don't talk a lot about the actual knee that I use and why, and Dirks uses the same knee and why we choose to use it. So we use the Stryker Triathlon knee. So Stryker is the brand. So there's multiple different brands. There's Johnson & Johnson, which they have their own brand of implants for total knees. You have Zimmer is a big one, Smith & Nephew. These are all just different companies that have their own knee replacements. Well, the Stryker Triathlon knee has some pretty unique things about it. So there's two basic types of knee replacements, and they're called cruciate retaining and cruciate substituting. So when we talk about cruciate, there's the anterior cruciate ligament, which is in the front part of the knee, and the posterior cruciate ligament, which is in the back part of the knee. So they're in the center of the knee, but they're in front of and in back of each other relatively, and they make a cross. That's why it's called cruciate. The cruciate retaining knees, which is what I use and what Dr. Dirks uses, is the anterior cruciate ligament comes out, but the posterior cruciate ligament, the one in the very back of the knee, stays in. And there are reasons that I like it that way. I've been doing this so long and done so many knees that I've done many, many different types of knees over the years. And I think that the cruciate retaining knee is a more stable construct and it doesn't have the peg in the middle of it that gives it the stability. It gets the stability from your own ligament, and I like that better. And that's just kind of one of the design things about this particular knee, the Stryker Triathlon that I use, that I like. The Triathlon was the best-selling knee in the world before Stryker bought the Mako robot. So they already had the best knee, and then they bought the best robot to put it in. And that's why I use it and why Dirks uses it. So more details on the design. Now, some of the design elements are going to be probably too sophisticated to really even bother talking about, but on the medial and lateral sides of the knee, so that's the inside and the outside of the knee. If you put your hand on your knee, the inside is the part that would be going to touch the other knee. The outside would be on the outside. So that's what I mean by inside and outside. It's medial and lateral is how we describe it technically. The radius of curvature of the knee is a little bit elongated on the outside, and that helps the mechanics of the knee in a very subtle but I think very useful way. And I think I can just probably would leave it at that with respect to, because it has to do with a concept called femoral rollback. And it's how much the femur, as the knee bends, it's how much the femur rolls back on the tibia. So if you put your hands together and make a fist and put both your hands looking at each other, and you pull them apart, you'll see that in order for things to continue to be lined up, there's going to be some sliding, right? And so how much it slides backwards is called femoral rollback. And I think that the most biomechanically stable and sound construct in any knee replacement is the Stryker Triathlon. That's what I love about it. And it has the highest rate of what they call forgotten knee feeling. So that means that patients will say, yeah, I forget that I had my knee replaced. That is not everybody. By any stretch of the imagination, it's not everybody. But there's a lot of them. And the literature, the medical studies show that the Stryker Triathlon has the highest rated percentage of people who say that they feel like they forget. They'll be walking around on the day-to-day and have forgotten that their knee was replaced. Again, it's not everybody. lots of people have little clicks and catches, not so much catches, but clicks and clunks and things like that can last a long time or even forever, because you're substituting cartilage, which is soft, for metal and plastic, which is hard. So, the knee's not really designed, the knee joint, the ends of the bone, the actual joint part, lining part that we resurface with this knee replacement is not designed to have hard on hard. So it's, you have to get it perfectly right. And even if you get it perfectly right, sometimes people still have clicks and clunks. But most of the time that'll go away in the first couple of years. And if it doesn't, then sometimes you just kind of got to live with that. And it's not that your surgeon did anything that was wrong. It's just that happens sometimes. But again, less with the Striker Triathlon. Probably to me, the biggest advantage of the Striker Triathlon is it is a fully press fit knee. So there's two options on fixing a knee into the bone. Is you cement it with what we call a polymethyl methacrylate cement. So during the surgery, you'll put cement down and put it under the knee, and it hardens, and then that's how it holds. What we do with the press fit, the Striker Triathlon press fit, is we make the cuts so perfectly with the robot that when you put it on, it's already tight. So there's no give in it. It's super tight. And then the back of the knee, both on the femur side, the femur is the thigh bone, and the tibia side, tibia is the shin bone. The ends of those bones are the knee joint. Those bones, it's basically a cap on it on the femur and a cap on it on the tibia, and then we put the plastic in between, which fixes to the tibia. So the femur will then roll over it. The back of that is coated with a special coating of the actual metal that it's made of. And people ask, what's it made of? Well, the femur side is made of a cobalt chrome alloy, and the tibia side is made of titanium. And the reason for that is those metals have different characteristics. It's called Young's modulus. It's a mechanical engineering term that we use in orthopedics that we've borrowed the concept. I mean, we apply this engineering concept. And it's basically strength over strain, and there are different characteristics necessary for the tibial side and the femoral side. The tibial side, you want it to be essentially more unforgiving because it needs to be perfectly solid and not have any kind of give in it at all, because then on top of that you put the plastic, which does have some give in it. On the femoral side, since that's actually going to be moving back and forth on the plastic, you want it to be solid, of course, but you want it to be able to be very smooth. And the cobalt chrome is able to have a smoother surface and also has some characteristics of the way it responds to force being put across it that makes it the natural choice for that. So on the back of those implants is a coating of that same type of metal, but it's made and it looks just like a sponge if you look at it. And the bone grows into it and goes in between those, and you have a very tight fit to it. It's called spongy bone. We call it cancellous bone, but it's also called spongy bone. And that's the bone that it grows into it. And the advantage to that is multiple. For one thing, when knees fail, they fail at the cement bone interface. So you have the bone, then the cement, then the implant. Where the cement is attached to the bone, that's where, when knees fail over time, that's where they fail. And they fail there because one of the reasons that they fail late, I'm talking about 10 years, 15 years in, we used to tell people your knee is going to last 10 years, and we know now that they're going to should last 25. But as the plastic wears, little tiny pieces of that plastic get in between the cement and the bone, and they cause an inflammatory reaction, and then it starts to get loose. Well, that doesn't happen when you have the bone grown into the metal, because the bone has grown in and it's essentially hooked around little. So if you imagine a sponge, just like a sponge at your sink, and imagine stuff grew into that rather than was glued to the surface of it, right? And that's kind of what it is. Instead of gluing it to the surface, it grows in and holds it tighter. And so there's less areas for it to fail due to the plastic that's in between the two metals wearing out. I know that's kind of a lot of concepts all at once, and you may not have followed all of it, but there are a lot of reasons that different surgeons use different knees. I would tell you that I think the number one reason most surgeons use any particular knee is because they're comfortable with it and they're getting good results with it. And there's nothing wrong with that, 100%. And that's how I've been my whole career. I've done multiple different phases of my career. I've used different knees. I've always been of the thought process that you only use one type of knee and then you really, really know it instead of using 2 or 3 different types like I've seen some surgeons do. My preference has always been to do just one type of knee. And so once we bought the robot is a Stryker robot and it puts in Stryker knees. And I was happy with the knee first before we bought the robot. And of course, the robot was icing on the cake because it's the best thing going. But just, wanted to explain a little bit about the actual knee. We talk a lot about the techniques, the pain control, the robot, all these other things. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the actual fundamentals of the knee replacement we use itself. So with that, enjoy your independence. And I hope everybody has enjoyed their Independence Day weekend and, should be grateful for all the blessings that we have in this country. And if you're not, then go travel around the world a little bit and you will be. So with that, I'll be back next week. You have a blessed week, Iowa.
This has been the St. Anthony Hospital Orthopedic Show with Dr. Richard Godding. For more information about Dr. Godding, his practice, or St. Anthony Hospital Orthopedics, go to www.santanthonyhospital.org or make an appointment by calling 712-794-5536.